Hare Krishna. Somebody can please lead the invocation prayers.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjalashalakaya Satguru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhisham Sthabinam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamayam Tatandesha Patandikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Sagrajadam Sagagana Raghunathapitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadudam Parijanam Sakitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Pradam Sagaguna Lalitam Sri Vishankha Vichamcha Ye Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpade Gopika Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Jabanu Sute Devi Pranabhabi Haripriya Vanchakalpa Rupishya Kripa Sindho Evacha Paditanam Pavanesho Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all for coming. So today we will cover Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 2. But before that, let's start with you all explaining one or more points from previous class and asking one or more questions. We had heavy layout Canto 4 at our last class.
Hare Krishna, the question was why Atri Muni cannot be counted among the pure devotees. Pure devotees work for Krishna without material attachment, with a deep philosophical understanding. Atri Muni prayed to have a son like Lord and not the Lord, where God's name is lacking, which is a material desire. Hence, he is not a pure devotee. Hare Krishna.
Okay, very good. We had a lot of important points discussed at our last class.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So we were doing, you were explaining the genealogical order of, we looked at Swayambhuva Manu and Satrupa and all the very different daughters and sons. And you also, gave us, there are all the qualities which they possess, Prabhu, which may be positive and negative too.
All right, very good. What else? Anybody?
We discussed the topic on Sarga and Vigarga, the key point. Secondary creation, Jiva, suffering, Bhakti Yoga.
All right.
And Prabhu, there are also glorious examples of Vaishnavis like Anusuya, Suniti, Aruchi, who are all devoted to their husbands.
Okay, very good.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just to add, you also had started saying that the units which are 15 to 20, we are going to see positive examples which are filled with glories of the Lord and devotees and process of bhakti. And we'll also be saying the negative incidents so that this is to caution all of us, Prabhu.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so the first unit that we have in Canto 4, unit 15, is definitely the negative example of offenses and cursing. Okay, so let's begin Canto 4, Chapter 2. So Canto 4, Chapter 2 is titled Daksha Curses Lord Shiva and is divided into 6 parts. This incident of Daksha and Shiva is a negative incident and has a very important learning of not doing offenses and not to become angry, because anger is very detrimental on the path of spirituality. So first, should not have cursed, and then the further learning is not to counter curse, like how Nandishwara counter curses, and this curses and counter curses goes on. What needs to be done is taught by Shiva later on, that Shiva stayed completely silent, tolerated everything, and Shiva simply left from that location. So part 1 is verses 1 to 3. Vidura inquires. Part 2, verses 4 to 8, Daksha enters the sacrificial arena. Part 3, verses 9 to 19, Daksha insults and curses Lord Shiva. Part 4, verses 20 to 26, Nandiswara counter curses Daksha and his followers. Part 5, verses 27 to 32, Bhrigu curses Lord Shiva's followers. Part 6, verses 33 to 35, Shiva departs and Yajna is completed. Verses 1 to 3 are straightforward inquiry by Vidura, because in Canto 4, Chapter 1, verse 66, towards the end of last chapter, which stated about Daksha's hatred towards Shiva. And therefore, Vidura has an inquiry on this. Shivangi, verses 1 to 3 translations. Gopal Prabhu, 1 to 3 translations.
Hare Krishna. Text 1, translation. Vidura inquired, why was Daksha, who was so affectionate towards his daughter, envious of Lord Shiva, who is the best among the gentle? Why did he neglect his daughter Sati? Text 2. Lord Shiva, the spiritual master of the entire world, is free from enmity He is a peaceful personality and is always satisfied in himself. He is the greatest among the demigods. How is it possible that Daksha could be inimical towards such an auspicious personality? Text 3. My dear Maitreya, to part with one's life is very difficult. Would you kindly explain to me how such a son-in-law and father-in-law could quarrel so bitterly that the great goddess Sati could give up her life? Hare Krishna.
So as I had explained that these 7 chapters at the start of Canto 4 are all linked chapters. So whatever conversation happens in one chapter and then later on the other personality is speaking, and there is a reference or a correlation between those. It essentially is one topic. So Vidura is inquiring that Daksha is Prajapati, Shiva is gentle, the spiritual master of the whole world, non-envious and always peaceful and self-satisfied. Shiva is greatest of demigods. So how can these two personalities fight so badly that the result is that Daksha's daughter Sati, meaning the wife of Shiva, commits suicide? And in the purport for one of the verses, Prabhupada explains the meaning of the word Sati. Sati means the most chaste. And now part 2 is verses 4 to 8. Daksha enters the sacrificial arena. Again, these verses are straightforward. Mother Jija, verses 4 to 7 translations.
Text 4 translation. The sage Maitreya said, in a former time, the leaders of the universal creation performed a great sacrifice in which all the great sages, philosophers, demigods, and fire gods assembled with their followers. Text 5. When Daksha, the leader of Prajapatis, entered the assembly, his personal bodily luster and as bright as the effulgence of the sun, the entire assembly was illuminated and all the assembled personalities became insignificant in his presence. Text 6. Influenced by the personal bodily luster, all the fire gods and other participants in the great assembly, with the exceptions of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, gave up their own sitting places and stood in respect for Daksha. Text 7. Daksha was adequately welcomed by the president of the great assembly, Lord Brahma. After offering Lord Brahma respect, Daksha, by the order of Brahma, properly took his seat. Hare Krishna.
So straightforward verses that the scene is described of Daksha entering the sacrificial arena. From verse number 8 onwards, Daksha will become angry on Shiva and blaspheme Shiva. Lord Shiva, being the son-in-law of Daksha, was expected to show his father-in-law respect by standing up like how others stood up. But because Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are principal demigods, their positions are greater than Daksha's position. Daksha, however, could not tolerate this, that Shiva did not stand up. And Daksha took it as an insult by his son-in-law. Chandran Prabhu, verse 8, translation and purport.
Hare Krishna. Text 8. Before taking his seat, however, Daksha was very much offended to see Lord Shiva sitting and not showing him any respect. At that time, Daksha became greatly angry and his eyes glowing he began to speak very strongly against Lord Shiva. Text 9.
Eight
All
purport.
sages, purport. Lord Shiva, being the son-in-law of Daksha, was expected to show his father-in-law respect by standing with others. But because Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are the principal demigods, their positions are greater than Daksha's. Daksha, however, could not tolerate this, and he took it as an insult by his son-in-law. Previously, also, he was not very much satisfied with the Lord Shiva, for Shiva looked very poor and was niggardly in dress.
So, next set of verses is part 3, verses 9 to 19. Daksha insults and curses Lord Shiva. So each of these verses have blasphemy words, and acharyas have described that it was actually an indirect praise of Lord Shiva. Although all these verses are straightforward, we'll read one verse at a time to discuss what the verse actually says versus what the acharyas describe as an indirect praise of Lord Shiva. Mother Chandra Aunty, verse 9 translation.
Text 9, translation. All sages, brahmanas, and fire gods present, please hear me with attention, for I speak about the manners of gentle persons. I do not speak out of ignorance or envy.
So from here starts this Daksha's envy and his anger. From this verse you can visualize that he's saying, look, I am talking about manners of gentle persons, and that I do not speak out of ignorance or envy. And actually we'll go on to we'll go on to read that actually Daksha was completely in anger, and how anger is so detrimental, making Daksha speak all these blasphemy verses, blaspheming Shiva. Uncle will read verse 10 translation.
Hare Krishna, verse 10. Shiva has spoiled the name and fame of the governors of the universe and has polluted the path of gentle manners because he is shameless. He does not know how to act.
So Daksha is saying Shiva is shameless, and the indirect praise that acharyas have explained is that Shiva maintains the shelterless. Then Shiva is proud, Daksha is saying, and Shiva destroyed the fame of Lokapalas and polluted the path of gentle manners, while Acharya is saying the indirect praise is by his own fame, Lord Shiva derides the fame of all others. Everybody with me? Everybody understands what the words are saying in the verses versus what the acharyas have explained as the indirect praise?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Shiva maintains a shelterless is okay. After that, what you said, Prabhu? Can you please repeat?
So Daksha is saying that Shiva is proud and destroyed the fame and polluted the path of gentle manners. To this, acharyas have explained that Shiva, by his own fame, Lord Shiva derides the fame of all others. Shalini?
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Shalini will read verse 11 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 11. He has already accepted himself as my subordinate by marrying my daughter in the presence of fire and Brahmanas. He has married my daughter who is equal to Gayatri and has pretended to be just like an honest person. Hare Krishna.
So Daksha is saying, pretending to be an honest person, Shiva accepted my daughter's hands and thus accepted himself as my subordinate. While Acharyas explain, the indirect praise is omniscient Shiva understands my bad behavior, meaning Daksha's bad behavior, but Shiva keeps it as a secret. And so he did not stand up and did not welcome me. All right. Gopal Prabhu, 12 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 1. He has eyes like a monkey's, yet he has married my daughter, whose eyes are just like those of a deer cub. Nevertheless, he did not stand up to receive me, nor did he think it fit to welcome me with sweet words.
So Daksha is saying, this monkey-eyed person has married my daughter, but now he has failed to respect me even with sweet words. And Acharyas have explained the indirect praise of Shiva is, Shiva mercifully grants the desires of monkey-like materialist. Everybody on the same page? Shivangi, you let me know whenever you are ready to read. If you are, you can read 13.
Yes, Prabhuji, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, verse 13, translation. I had no desire to give my daughter to this person who has broken all rules of civility. Because of not observing the required rules and regulations, he is impure, but I was obliged to hand over my daughter to him, just as one teaches the messages of the Vedas to a Shudra.
So Daksha is saying that Shiva doesn't perform rituals, and Acharyas are saying Shiva does not need to perform rituals. Daksha says Shiva is impure, and Acharyas are saying no one is cleaner than Shiva. Daksha is saying Shiva is proud. Acharyas are saying Shiva is not proud. Daksha is saying violates code of conduct, means Shiva violates the code of conduct, while Acharyas are saying that Shiva does not break any rules. All right. Chandran Prabhu, 14-15 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 14:15. Translation. He lives in filthy places like crematoriums, and his companions are the ghosts and demons. Naked like a madman, sometimes laughing and sometimes crying. He smears crematorium ashes all over his body. He does not bathe regularly, and he ornaments his body with a garland of skulls and bones. Therefore, only in name is he Shiva, or auspicious, actually is the most mad and inauspicious creature. Thus, he is very dear to crazy beings in the gross mode of ignorance, and he is their leader.
So Daksha is saying Shiva is like a madman, sometimes laughs and sometimes cries. Acharyas are saying Shiva is mad with prema for the Supreme Lord. Daksha is saying Shiva smears crematorium ashes, ornaments with garland of skulls and bones. Acharyas have explained this is Shiva's pastime. According to other Puranas, smearing ashes on the body is an activity of exalted Vaishnava. Daksha is saying Shiva is the most mad and inauspicious creature, and Shiva is in name only. And Acharyas have explained that by Shiva, even a worst place becomes auspicious. No one is more auspicious than Shiva. And then Daksha is saying Shiva is dear of crazy beings who are in Tamoguna, and Shiva is their leader. And Acharyas have explained that Shiva mercifully accepts even the most ignorant and gradually elevates even such most ignorant persons to spiritual consciousness. Everybody with me?
Yes, Prabhu.
Mother Chandranti, verse 16 translation.
Text 16. On the request of Lord Brahma, I handed over my first daughter to him, although he is devoid of all cleanliness and his heart is filled with nasty things. Hare Krishna.
So, we'll soon read the purport of verse 16. It's a very important verse about anger. So, Daksha is saying Shiva is unclean, while Acharyas have explained Shiva purifies even the impure. Daksha saying that Shiva is Lord of Ghosts, and Acharyas have explained that Shiva is merciful even to the mad. Daksha is saying Shiva has impure heart, and Acharyas saying Shiva's mind is merciful even to the sinful. So in anger, one forgets everything. Daksha accuses even Brahmaji out of anger. Mother Chandranti, verse 16 purport.
16 purport. It is the duty of parents to hand over their daughter to suitable persons, just befitting their family tradition in cleanliness, gentle behavior, wealth, social position, etc. Daksha was repented that on the request of Brahma, who was his father, he had handed over his daughter to a person who, according to his calculation, was nasty. He was so angry that he did not acknowledge that the request was from his father. Instead, he referred to Brahma as Paramesti, the supreme teacher in the universe, because of his temperament of gross anger. He was not even prepared to accept Brahma as his father. In other words, he accused even Brahma of being less intelligent because he had advised Daksha to hand over his beautiful daughter to such a nasty fellow. In anger, one forgets everything, and thus Daksha, in anger, not only accused the great Lord Shiva, but criticized his own father, Lord Brahma, for his not very astute advice that Daksha hand over his daughter to Lord Shiva.
So this is one of the important teaching of this chapter, that anger is very detrimental. One should not become angry because the whole body gets polluted. I'll tell you my personal example about anger. So this is many years back. This is before starting spirituality, before studying the scriptures. So it basically is, I am a pure materialistic and purely acting under Mahamaya. So I'm giving this example, my own example, is that all of you have to find your trigger, that what causes anger to you. And it will probably be different trigger for all of you. And you have to recognize that this is your trigger. And you observe that on a go forward basis, you don't become angry when this trigger triggers. How to find your trigger is keep a note for yourself or look backwards, that in circumstances where you have become angry, what was the root cause that caused the anger? And you will find a correlation in those angry events where you have become angry, that there is a particular thing or a particular circumstance or something that causes that trigger to make you angry. So this one time, from my own example, at my workplace, I was so angry on a particular activity at workplace. And before this, I had gone through the training about finding this trigger. So I was little bit conscious, not fully conscious. I was little bit conscious of wanting to find my trigger. So I was so angry at a particular time that I was writing an email in such an angry mode and typing so heavily, like the next colleague sitting in the next cubicle could hear me typing. I was literally typing it in anger. So at that time, I did recognize that my anger is triggered. And I continued writing the email. I just did not hit send. And I saved the email in the draft and left it, and I'll say I'll look at this tomorrow morning, because right now I think my anger is triggered and I'm still in the process of learning. It's not that I'm an expert in finding the trigger, but the training that I had gone through, the circumstances were very much to what I was doing. And I said, this should be my trigger. Next morning, when I came to work, the first thing I did was I looked at the email and I was like, oh, how could I have ever sent this email? In anger, what I was typing, meaning what I was saying, I had no control. And I was just blasting the other person back and forth. And not only I did not send that email, I actually deleted that email even from my draft folder, because there was no way I could have sent that email. So anger is very detrimental, not just in the spiritual life, even in the material world, that you try to calm yourself down first. Just first try to find a trigger for yourself. I will pause here for questions, comments, realizations for all these verses that we have discussed about Daksha's curses and the anger and the Acharya's praise of Shiva.
Prabhuji, Daksha being the son of Brahmaji, he is not at the level of Brahmaji as well as Shiva. What made him to feel that he could get angry? Because he is father-in-law and given such a beautiful daughter Sati. Is it an illusion, or he was under influence of Maya?
So anger caused him to do all these things. So this anger point will continue the discussion here. It is explained that anger is very detrimental. We read in the purport. Plus, of course, Mahamaya and ego overtakes once you become angry, and you have no control. Uncle?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I think Daksha was not acting at the soul level. He was acting in a physical mode, like.
Yeah, you are correct. Yeah. Uncle, does that help you?
Yes.
Preeti? Shivangi?
Are they brothers? Is Lord Shiva also Brahmaji's son?
You are correct. Preeti, you have something to say? We cannot hear you.
Prabhuji,
Yeah.
Prabhuji, a small request from my side. Somehow, quite some time I have been wanting to ask, but I didn't want to be misunderstood. Shivangi asked very incisive questions, which I like it and I enjoy and love. But unfortunately, there is something wrong in her unit. I am not able to totally listen. Whereas none of them I miss, except Shivangi. I am very keen to listen to her also. So would you please address that? What is the issue there?
So we all are able to hear it properly, Shivangi's voice. So it's probably the connection is at your end. So you can try to put on a headphone for clear.
I am using headphone only, AirPod. But all your voice, Chandran Prabhu, Gopal Prabhu, Shalini, everybody, Jija, Mother, everybody is very clear. But except That is why I'm wondering, and after a
Yes,
long time, with much hesitation, I requested this.
yeah, we all are able to hear Shivangi also correctly. So there is nothing. So obviously there is nothing for Shivangi to fix, and you are absolutely correct. Shivangi has definitely a very good question. So maybe when Shivangi asks, I can repeat her question, so at least everybody gets to hear it properly. If whosoever is not able to hear it, does that help you, Uncle?
Would you please repeat her last question now?
Yeah, so Shivangi asked whether Shiva and Daksha are brothers, and the answer is yes, that both are children of Brahmaji.
Thank
So Preeti has a point mentioned in the chat. Let's read. So Daksha doesn't like Shiva as he didn't pay respect, but it also says that he never wanted Shiva to be married to his daughter. It's only because of his father Brahmaji, he has got the daughter married to Shiva. So why Daksha didn't like Shiva? Is it because of the character? So this discussion will come up. Vidura will ask this exact same question. It is because of envy. And because of anger, envy and anger, the anarthas within the body get triggered. And that's why Gopal Prabhu correctly pointed out that Daksha is acting at bodily level, not at the soul level. And this is what triggered all this negative points. And this is the learning for us. So first, we should not be envious of others. And the way to not be envious of others is that you be at the level of soul and understand that if you are a soul, nothing in the material world can make you happy, because everything in the material world is material. But you are a soul, you are spiritual. Nothing in the material world can make the soul happy. And the other way to get out of envy is to understand that I have my Varna and I have the opulences according to my Varna. Meaning, my body is my disease and I have the required medicine for my diseased body. And the other person has his own Varna, means his disease is different. And he will have the opulences according to his Varna and according to his karmic credit. I have no role to play in there. So why should I ever become envy of anyone? So on a go forward basis, next time when, or if at all, this envious nature in any one of you gets triggered, remember these points, that there is no reason to become envy of other. And the example we have discussed multiple times, that when in an hospital, one patient is given one medication and the other patient is given other medication because their disease is different. So one patient cannot say, I need the medication of the other person. No, I will not get cured by medication of others. My body is my disease. The other person's body is other person's disease, other person's Varna, other person's karmic credit. I have no role to play. Why should I become envy? Whatever is required for my purification, Krishna has provided that opulence to me. Meaning, I have my own medication. I have to take my own medication. So both these points, envy and anger, we should not fall prey to these anarthas. Preeti and everybody, does that help you?
Yes, Prabhu.
All right. Shivangi, verse 17 and 18 translations.
Text 17. The sage Maitreya continued. Thus Daksha, seeing Lord Shiva sitting as if against him, washed his hands and mouth and cursed him in the following words. The demigods are eligible to share in the oblations of sacrifice, but Lord Shiva, who is the lowest of all the demigods, should not have a share.
Okay, pretty straightforward verses of Daksha continuing his envy and saying, I'm not going to give Daksha, Shiva his share of the sacrifice. Now, we'll soon read that this Daksha's blasphemy, or the whatever he was trying to do and say, actually became a blessing for Lord Shiva, because Shiva being a great Vaishnava, it is not befitting for Lord Shiva to share the fruits of sacrifice along with other demigods. And this is explained in purport of verse 18. So because of Daksha's curse, Shiva was deprived of his share in the oblations of the Vedic sacrifice. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments in this connection that Lord Shiva was saved from the calamity of taking part with other demigods who were all materialistic. Lord Shiva is the greatest devotee of Supreme Lord, and it is not fitting for him to eat or sit with materialistic persons like these other demigods. Therefore, the curse of Daksha was indirectly a blessing for Shiva. Otherwise, Shiva would have had to eat or sit with these other materialistic demigods. And a practical example is set by Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who used to sit on the side of a washroom to chant Hare Krishna so as to not get disturbed. And generally, materialistic people would not go near a washroom, and these materialistic people would come and bother Gaur Kishore Das Babaji and disturb his daily routine of chanting. So he would go and sit beside the washroom so as to avoid the company of materialistic people, where materialistic people would not go because of filth and obnoxious smell. However, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was so great that he is accepted as the spiritual master of great personalities such as Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. The conclusion is that Lord Shiva behaved in his own way to avoid materialistic persons who might disturb him in his prosecution of devotional service. Shivangi, verse 18 purport.
Verse 18, purport. Because of this sacrifice, Shiva was deprived of his share in the oblations of Vedic sacrifices. It was due to the curse of Daksha. Sri Vishwanatha Chakravarti comments in this connection that Lord Shiva was saved from the calamity of taking part with other demigods who were all materialistic. Lord Shiva is the greatest devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is not fitting for him to eat or sit with materialistic persons like demigods. Thus, the curse of Daksha was indirectly a blessing, for Shiva would not have to eat or sit with other demigods who were too materialistic. There is a practical example set for us by Gauri Kishore Baba Maharaja, who used to sit on the side of a latrine to chant Hare Krishna. Many materialistic persons used to come and bother him and disturb his daily routine of chanting, so to avoid their company, he used to sit by the side of a latrine where materialistic persons would not go because of the filth and the obnoxious smell. However, Gauri Kishore Babaji Maharaja was so great that he was accepted as the spiritual master of such a great personality as His Divine Grace Om Vishnu Pada Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaja. The conclusion is that Lord Shiva behaved in his own way to avoid materialistic persons who might disturb him in his prosecution of devotional service.
All right, everybody on the same page?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Now, part 4, verse 20 to 26. Title is Nandeshwara counter curses Daksha and his followers. Now, this is also a learning that, okay, if somebody has done a mistake, don't follow up with a mistake of your own. That don't try to counter curse. Not only Nandeshwara first counter curses, but then further verses, Bhrigu counter curses to the counter curses. So all these are learnings of what not to do. And Shiva will teach us what to do is that Shiva simply left without saying a word. Okay. Mother Jija, 21 translation.
Text 21. Anyone who has accepted Daksha as the most important personality
Sorry.
and neglected.
Sorry, wait. I actually missed a very important verse in between, verse number 19, which is about anger being detrimental. Mother Jija, verse 19, translation and purport, please.
Text 19. Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, in spite of requests of all the members of the sacrificial assembly, Daksha is in great anger, cursed Lord Shiva and left the assembly and went back to his home. Purport. Anger is so detrimental that even a great personality like Daksha, out of anger, left the arena where Brahma was presiding, and all great sages and pious and saintly persons were assembled. All of them requested him not to leave, but infuriated, he left, thinking that the auspicious place was not fit for him. Puffed up by his exalted position, he thought that no one was greater than he in argument. It appears that all the members of the assembly, including Lord Brahma, requested him not to be angry and leave their company. But in spite of all these requests, he left. That is the effect of cruel anger. In Bhagavad Gita, therefore, it is advised that one who desires to make tangible advancement in spiritual consciousness must avoid three things: lust, anger, and the mode of passion. Actually, we can see that the lust, anger, and passion make a man crazy even though he be as great as Daksha. The very name Daksha suggests that he was expert in all material activities, but still, because of his aversion towards such a saintly personality as Shiva, he was attacked by these three enemies: anger, lust, and passion. Lord Chaitanya therefore advised that one be very careful not to offend Vaishnavas. He compared offenses towards a Vaishnava to a mad elephant. As a mad elephant can do anything horrible, so would a person offends. So when a person offends a Vaishnava, he can perform any abominable action. Hare Krishna.
So puffed up by his exalted position, Daksha thought no one is greater than he in argument. And even though all members are in the assembly, including Brahmaji, requested Daksha to not be angry and not to leave, in spite he says, I am right. This is the cruel effect of anger. And to Preeti's question just a few minutes ago is answered right here, that Prabhupada says in the purport, actually we can see that lust, anger and passion make a man crazy, even though he may be as great as Daksha. And the last line in the purport, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, so when you offend a Vaishnava, it causes you to take such abominable action. Therefore, this is an important learning in this chapter about don't be angry, because anger is very detrimental, and don't offend anybody. Everybody on the same page? Questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Just one realization, Prabhu. Like, see, reading all this, like every time, I think humility is so important. Like the reminding us to be like the blade of grass, Prabhu.
Very good. Therefore, in chapter 13, verses 8 to 12, Bhagavad Gita, the 20 qualities that we have to develop. First quality is humility, amanitva. And Shalini correctly pointed out from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sikshastakam number 3, that tolerate like a blade of grass.
So Prabhu, pride also makes a person angry.
You are correct. So I will read the translation of Sikshastakam number 3. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, one should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in a street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So we have to learn to tolerate like a tree. Everybody on the same page?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, sometimes in the material world, yeah, maybe one need not react in an angry manner, but we have to avoid being trampled over also, no, Prabhu? Sometimes.
You are correct. So humility does not mean that you let anybody and everybody trample on you. Humility means, Prabhupada has explained this in Bhagavad Gita chapter 13 verses 8 to 12 in the purport. Humility means the devotee is not anxious to receive honor. So at your workplace or any other activity in the material world, be purpose focused. Then you will be humble. An example I have given is, say if I am a team lead And if I am egoistic person, then I will say, do what I'm telling you to do, irrespective of whether it is right or wrong. Versus if I am humble and a junior team member comes up with an idea which is better for the project, then I will accept. Means I am purpose focused. My purpose is to make the project a success. And if a junior has a better idea, then I will take it if I am humble. So be purpose focused in the workplace, and you should be okay with that, or at least will be reasonably okay. I wouldn't say others will not try to take advantage, but you can be firm at certain places rather than being angry. Shalini.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
All right, Uncle will read 20 to 21. So now we are in part 4, verses 20 to 26, where Nandishwara counter curses Daksha and his followers.
Hare Krishna. Text 20. Upon understanding that Lord Shiva had been cursed, Nandishwara, one of Lord Shiva's principal associates, became greatly angry. His eyes became red, and he prepared to curse Daksha and all the Brahmanas present there who had tolerated Daksha's cursing Shiva in harsh words. Text 21. Anyone who has accepted Daksha as the most important personality and neglected Lord Shiva because of envy is less intelligent, and because of visualizing in duality will be bereft of transcendental knowledge. Hare Krishna.
So first curse by Nandishwara was that anyone supporting Daksha was foolishly identifying himself with body, and therefore, because Daksha had no transcendental knowledge, supporting Daksha would deprive such a person also of transcendental knowledge of the soul, and thus this person supporting Daksha will be deprived of the knowledge of the Supreme Lord. Nandishwara said, Daksha identified himself with body like other materialistic person and was trying to derive all kinds of facilities in relationship with the body. Exactly what Gopal Prabhu was saying a few minutes ago, that Daksha is acting at the level of body. And Nandishwara saying that Daksha had excessive attachment for the body and in relation to the body with wife, children, home and other things. And all these are different from the soul. Chandran Prabhu, 22, translation 22. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Text 22. Pretentiously religious household life in which one is attracted to material happiness and thus also attracted to the superficial explanation of the Vedas, robs one of all intelligence and attaches one to fruitive activities as all in all. Hare Krishna.
So Nandishwara is saying that persons who identify with bodily existence are attached to fruitive activities described in Vedic literature. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that this flowery language of Vedas mostly attracts person who identify with the body. To them, such happiness as the heavenly kingdom is everything. They do not know that beyond heaven, there is spiritual kingdom of God, and they have no knowledge that one can actually go to kingdom of God. Such materialistic person are very, very careful in observing rules and regulations of household life in order to be promoted to heavenly planets in their next life. Such persons are attracted to Gramya Sukha. Gramya Sukha means material happiness, which is without knowledge of eternal bliss and spiritual life. Shalini, 23-24 translations.
Text 23. Daksha has accepted the body as all in all. Therefore, he has forgotten the Vishnu Pada or Vishnu Gati and is attached to sex life only. Within a short time, he will have the face of a goat. Text 24. Those who have become as dull as matter by cultivating materialistic education and intelligence are nascently involved in fruitive activities. Such men have purposely insulted Lord Shiva. May they continue this in the cycle of repeated birth and death. Hare Krishna.
Since Daksha has forgotten Vishnupad and is attached to sex life only, therefore, within a short time, he will have a face of a goat. So this will come up in later chapter that Daksha will actually going to get the face of a goat. And those who have become as dull as matter by cultivating materialistic education and intelligence are nascently involved in fruitive activities. Mother Jija, 25-26 translation.
Text translation. May those who are envious of Lord Shiva, being attracted by the flowery language of the enchanting Vedic promises, and who have thus been done, always remain attached to fruitive activities. Text 26. These brahmanas take to education, austerity, and vows only for the purpose of maintaining the body. They shall be devoid of discrimination between what to eat and what not to eat. They will acquire money begging from door to door.
Okay, Mother Jija is disconnected. The voice was anyway not getting through clearly. Gopal Prabhu, you can read that both 25-26 again.
Translation, no? Hare Krishna. Text 25, translation. May those who are envious of Lord Shiva, being attracted by the flowery language of the enchanting Vedic promises, and who have thus become dull, always remain attached to fruitive activities. Text 26, translation. These brahmanas take to education, austerity, and vows only for the purpose of maintaining the body. They shall be devoid of discrimination between what to eat and what not to eat. They will acquire money begging from door to door simply for the satisfaction of the body.
So what Nandeshwara is saying is that those who are envious of Lord Shiva, being attracted to the flowery language of enchanting Vedic promises, they have become dull. And may they always remain attached to fruitive activities. Vedic promises of elevation to higher standards of materialistic life are compared to flowery language, because in a flower there is certainly an aroma, but that aroma does not last for a very long time. And in a flower there is honey, but that honey is not eternal. Brahmanas who supported Daksha are completely functioning in the age of Kali. The so-called Brahmanas are no longer interested in understanding the nature of Supreme Brahman. Although Brahmana means one who has attained knowledge about Brahman. So about these Brahmanas will come up in later verses and chapters. Prabhupada will explain that how these Brahmanas are functioning in Kali Yuga. This was the starting point also. So human life is meant for one's elevation, first to the post of Brahmana, and then you elevate further to become a Vaishnava. Unfortunately, the modern so-called Brahmanas do not allow others to occupy the post of Brahmana. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu condemned this principle very strongly. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that regardless of whether a person is born in a Brahmana family or a Shudra family, regardless of whether he is householder or a sannyasi, if he knows the science of Krishna, he must be a spiritual master. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had so many Shudra disciples like Haridas Thakur, Ramanand Rai, and by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all these Shudras went on to become first-class Vaishnavas. And now from verse 27 is part 5. Part 5 is 27 to 32. Title is Bhrigu Curses Lord Shiva's Followers. So first there was counter curse by Nandishvara that should not have happened. And then further there is counter curse to the counter curse by Bhrigu. And this should also not have happened. So this is the learning for us on what not to do. Uncle will read 27 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 27 translation. When all the hereditary Brahmanas were thus called by Nandiswara, the sage Bhrigu, as a reaction, condemned the followers of Lord Shiva with this very strong Brahmanical curse.
So Brahmananda, Brahmadanda, or the curse of a Brahmana, is very strong. Therefore, it is called Duratya or insurmountable. As the Lord states in Bhagavad Gita that the stringent laws of nature are insurmountable. Similarly, if a curse is uttered by a Brahmana, that curse is also insurmountable. To get out of material contamination, one should take shelter of the Supreme Lord, as is recommended in Bhagavad Gita 7.14. Mam eva ye prapatyante mayam etam karantite, as well as in 18.66. Persons who have taken shelter of Krishna are always peaceful, and they are never cursed by anyone, nor do they attempt to curse anyone else. That is their transcendental position. Shalini 28:29 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 28. One who takes a vow to satisfy Lord Shiva or who follows such principles will certainly become an atheist and be diverted from transcendental scriptural injunctions. Text 29. Those who vow to worship Lord Shiva are so foolish that they imitate him by keeping long hair on their heads. When initiated into worship of Lord Shiva, they prefer to live on wine, flesh, and other such things. Hare Krishna.
So Srimad Bhagavatam and Narada Pancharatra are authorized scriptures that are considered scriptures which lead one to the path of God realization. And Asat Shastra are just the opposite, meaning rest of the whatever we read in the material world. Mother Chandra Aunty, 30, 31, 32 translations.
Text 30. Bhrigumani continued, since you blaspheme the Vedas and the Brahmanas, who are followers of the Vedic principles, it is understood that you have already taken shelter of the doctrine of atheism. Text 31. The Vedas give the eternal regulative principles for auspicious advancement in human civilization, which have been rigidly followed in the past. The strong evidence of these principles is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is called Janardana, the well-wisher of all living entities. Next, 32. By blaspheming the principles of the Vedas, which are the pure and supreme path of the saintly persons, certainly you followers of Bhutapati, Lord Shiva, will descend to the standard of atheism without a doubt. Hare Krishna.
So up to now is the negative point. That first Daksha became angry and envious and blasphemy. Then there were counter curses by Nandishwara, and then counter to the counter curses by Bhrigu. And now comes the solution, which is taught by Shiva. So part 6 is verses 33 to 35. Title is Shiva departs and the yajna is completed. So Lord Shiva teaches us to be silent, to tolerate, and to leave the place. Gopal Prabhu, 33 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 33 translation. The sage Maitreya said, when such cursing and counter-cursing was going on between Lord Shiva's followers and the parties of Daksha and Bhrigu, Lord Shiva became very morose. Not saying anything, he left the arena of the sacrifice, followed by his disciples. Hare Krishna.
So we'll soon read the purport. That Lord Shiva becomes very morose and leaving the sacrifice arena. What does this indicate about Lord Shiva's character? This is important learning. So Lord Shiva, excellent character is described here. That because he is the greatest Vaishnava, he was so sober that he did not say anything. A Vaishnava is always tolerant, and Lord Shiva is considered the topmost Vaishnava. So his character, as shown in this scene, is excellent. Lord Shiva became morose because he knew that these people, both his men and Daksha's men, were unnecessarily cursing and counter-cursing one another without any interest in spiritual life. So from his point of view, he did not see anyone as lower or higher because he is a Vaishnava. Shiva is a Vaishnava. Bhagavad Gita 5.18 explains Pandita Samadarshina, that one who is perfectly learned does not see anyone as lesser or greater because he sees everyone from the spiritual platform. Thus, the only alternative left for Lord Shiva was to leave in order to stop his followers, Nandishvara, as well as Bhrigu, from cursing and counter-cursing that was going on. Shalini, 33 purport.
Hare Krishna. Here Lord Shiva's excellent character is described. In spite of the cursing and counter-cursing between the parties of Daksha and Shiva, because he is the greatest Vaishnava, he was so sober that he did not say anything. A Vaishnava is always tolerant, and Lord Shiva is considered the topmost Vaishnava. So his character, as shown in this scene, is excellent. He became morose because he knew that these people, both his men and Daksha's, were unnecessarily cursing and counter-cursing one another without any interest in spiritual life. From his point of view, he did not see anyone as lower or higher because he is a Vaishnava. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 5.18, Pandita Samadarshina, one who is perfectly learned does not see anyone as lesser or greater because he sees everyone from the spiritual platform. Thus, the only alternative left to Lord Shiva was to leave in order to stop his follower Nandishvara as well as Bhrigu Muni from cursing and counter-cursing in that way. Hare Krishna.
Everybody on the same page? Questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Text 31 I had. Prabhu, text 31 translation, I don't remember now. I don't know. Can I just read it, Prabhu? I didn't understand this properly.
Yeah.
The Vedas give the eternal regulative principles for auspicious advancement in human civilization, which have been rigidly followed in the past. The strong evidence of this principle is Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Janardana, as the well-wisher of all living entities. So what is this Bhrigu Muni trying to tell here, Prabhu?
The Vedas teach you karma kanda life. That how do you live in the material world to enjoy in a dharmic ways, and then you can elevate yourself to heaven. But heaven is what? Is still in the material world, is still a place of misery. Degrees are different. The degree of enjoyment are different, but still is a place of misery. You are not going anywhere outside the material world. Just going from one place to another place, like we have discussed, that going to heaven is like going to a resort. So he's just saying that you are focused on Vedas following regulative principles for auspiciousness, but actually it isn't really anything auspicious in there.
Prabhu, the second part, the strong evidence of this principle is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah, so the Lord provides everyone's desires that they have. So even if somebody has a desire to enjoy the material world, Lord is providing everything. That's what he's saying, that the Lord is the well-wisher of all living beings, and he's saying, okay, you want to enjoy, here's the facility for this. Shalini?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
One realization, Prabhu, although Nandishwara is cursing, whatever Nandishwara's curse, but it's a universal truth.
Yeah, you are correct.
It applies to all of us.
All right, last two verses. Shivangi, translation 34-35.
The sage Maitreya continued, O Vidura, all the progenitors of the universal population thus executed a sacrifice for thousands of years, for sacrifice is the best way to worship the Supreme Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. My dear Vidura, carrier of bows and arrows, all the demigods who were performing the sacrifice took their bath at the confluence of the Ganges and the Yamuna after completing the Yamuna performance. Such a bath is called Avabrithasnana. After thus becoming purified in heart, they departed for their respective abodes.
So, question is that what general principles that Srila Prabhupada draw from the sages remaining to perform the sacrifice after the departure of Shiva and Daksha? So the sacrifice was not destroyed, and the sages went on to continue and finish the sacrifice. If one wants to worship the demigods, they can, but there's no need to worship demigods. One can simply satisfy the Supreme Lord. Bhagavad Gita 7.20 explains that those who are impelled by lust and desire go to the demigods to derive some material benefit. Persons who have lost their sense or intelligence, only such persons care for demigods and want to derive material benefits from them. This does not mean one should not show respect to demigods, but there is no need to worship them. You still respect demigods, but don't worship them as being gods. One who engages in a transcendental loving service of the Lord does not need to worship any demigod, nor does he have the tendency to show disrespect to any demigods. Because demigod worship is avidi purvakam, meaning done in a wrong way. By worshipping the Supreme Lord, one automatically serves all the demigods because demigods are parts and parcels of the whole. If one supplies water to the root of a tree, all the parts of the tree, such as leaves and branches, are automatically satisfied. So by worshipping Supreme Lord, one can satisfy all the demigods. But by worshipping demigods, one does not completely satisfy the Supreme Lord. Therefore, worship of demigods is irregular and is not required. And in this age of Kali, it is practically impossible to perform the sacrifices to the demigods. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam recommends Sankirtana Yajna in 11.5.32. says that in this age, the intelligent person completes the performance of all kinds of yajna simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 2nd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Daksha Curses Lord Shiva. We are right at 9:15 a.m. Toronto time. Please make notes of homework questions. Number 1. What general principles does Srila Prabhupada draw from Daksha's accusations against Brahmaji? Comes from verse 15. Oh, sorry, verse 16. Second, what general principles does Srila Prabhupada draw from behavior of Daksha? Comes from verse 19. Third, what does Lord Shiva's becoming morose and leaving the arena of sacrifice indicate about his character? Comes from verse 33. And the last is for next class. Read Canto 4, Chapter 3. Are we okay to stop here?
Yes,
Yes,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.